Hi, I'm Evelyn Lopez. Welcome to Sustainability in Your Ear, the EARTH911.com podcast for the week of July 16th, 2018. This week, we'll be discussing some of the stories from our website and answering Earthling questions. Today, we have with us Mitch Radcliffe, our EARTH911 publisher, here in Tacoma with me. How are you today?
Yo, Earthlings, how are you? Everything's great here in Tacoma.
Great. And also, we're joined by writer Sarah Lozanova. Sarah, are you in Maine today?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
And how are things in Maine?
Beautiful. Sunny and summery.
Excellent. Just as it should be for July. So I thought before we get started on talking about some of our stories, we might talk a little bit about some of the news this week, particularly on the disposable straw front.
Well, there has been a lot of activity. As we know, about 6 months ago, a photo of a walrus with a straw stuck up its nose went viral, and I think that was really the galvanizing moment for a lot of people to realize that they were just sick and tired of the 500 million straws that we end up throwing in the ocean every year. And so this week, Starbucks has followed McDonald's and others into the promise category that they're going to get rid of plastic straws by 2020. And this is an important step because Starbucks has 28,000 stores all over the world, and they're serving millions and millions of plastic straws a day. So it's a major source. And I have tried the new lid that they are providing as an alternative now.
And is it similar to the lid that they use on their hot drinks, or is it a little bit different?
Well, so on the hot drinks, you have a white number 5 plastic cover that is not recyclable, unless you clean it up.
Yeah.
What they are using instead is a clear plastic, biodegradable substance, which is formed like a tippy cup. So you put it on. So it's not quite like the hot coffee cup where it stands up above, but it's just a tippy cup lid on the drink. And I found using it was perfectly comfortable and easy. I didn't burn myself. I was able to enjoy my drink. But what and we actually had suggested almost exactly this design on the Earthling forum a few weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, but in paper. Because this is still a plastic item that, before it breaks down, has a hole in it the size that a fish or an eel could swim through. It's something that could get stuck on an animal too. I'm a little concerned that they went part of the way, but not all the way to where they need to make something that isn't going to be dangerous to wildlife in some sense. But it's a really good move in the sense that they are getting away from plastic straws. Happy. Clap for them. But we'd like to see them go a little further, and there is a stop sucking movement which is growing, and we're hoping to see that take off and convince even more folks to make the switch from plastic straws to paper, which, by the way, is the subject of our CEO interview last week with Terry Lehman, who is the CEO of True Paper Products. They're introducing a bamboo-based paper straw that's strong enough to punch through the top of a drink lid, and that is biodegradable. So there's a lot of options and opportunities out there. I'd like to see Starbucks look at paper instead of that plastic top.
Yeah, I would think that some kind of a paper with a dissolvable coating on it would do the trick. I've seen, as is always the case, whenever anything comes out, then you get the pushback of the but what about? And so the but what about is, what about people who have disabilities and need a straw? Will those be provided? And I've been assuming that most places will have some straws available if people need them as sort of an accommodation issue. So I don't think that this means that, straws are gone forever. I think it just means that we're trying to move towards a more thoughtful usage.
Bingo. That's it. Thoughtful. We have to think about what we're doing rather than just doing what we've always done. And that's the change that society is working toward. Unfortunately, we're arguing over every little step.
Yeah.
One interesting thing to note about this is they said they only took 10 weeks to design this.
That's pretty impressive.
And so hopefully they can take that same kind of energy, put it into a bunch of other things, because we do need to see a compostable cup from them as well.
Right.
And again, that's something that we've talked with True Green about introducing over the next few weeks. I feel like as we deal with the many crazy elements of our current government, whether you agree or disagree with me about the policies, the way we're doing it is crazy. And I think what we're going to end up coming back to is a kind of a reasonable discussion. Either that or we're just doomed.
Yeah,
and I don't believe
hope.
we're doomed.
It's easy to fall back into despair, frankly, from my perspective too. But I have to assume that there have been times that have been dire in the past, and that the country sort of moves through.
Well,
and I agree, process is not a bad thing, and that's one of the things we're hurting from right now.
Yeah, and if process can be driven by innovation like this, then we can have those discussions and move quickly towards more efficient and sustainable ways of living.
Yeah, great. Well, let's talk about the stories we wanted to review from the EARTH911 website. So, Sarah, what stories do you want to review this week?
Well, one that I think is really interesting is the greening of the cloud with renewable energy.
Oh, why don't you start with that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, basically, it's exploring how some IT companies are really helping to lead the way with renewable energy use. And Google is actually the largest user, the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy globally. Mm-hmm. And Google and Apple, along with Facebook, they were the first corporations to make 100% renewable energy commitment several years ago. And so this story is just exploring how some IT companies are really helping to lead the way with corporate purchasing of renewable energy.
So what would you recommend somebody thinking about buying any cloud service or even a computer that is connected to the cloud through things like Apple Drive or OneDrive for Microsoft or G Suite for your email and all the other things? What should they be looking for when they make a decision about choosing a green cloud provider?
Yeah, well, basically Greenpeace put out a report. It's called the 2017 Clicking Green Report. And they give scores to different companies. And so Apple, Google, WhatsApp, Instagram, iTunes, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, they all receive the highest scores. And then there's other companies that fell more in the middle, like eBay and Amazon and Etsy and HBO and Netflix. They're more in the middle. And then some companies like Hulu and Pandora and Pinterest and Twitter receive some of the poorest scores. So I would just recommend people look at how various companies are ranked, and then also voicing consumer demand. If there is a company that they want to support that did receive poor ratings, letting them know.
Well, so they get poor ratings because they're using non-renewable, primarily coal and fossil fuel-based energy. Is there a mark, anything that you can look for that we're a green site, or has that emerged yet?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. And basically there's a two-pronged approach. It's using renewable and non-polluting sources, but also energy efficiency is an important one as well. So the Greenpeace report takes both into account.
So if they're running their network more efficiently and using less power overall than a competitor, they also rank higher.
Exactly. Yeah, because energy efficiency is such an important aspect of clean energy use.
And apparently now, you reported that data centers use up to 3% of all the electricity in the United States. That's quite a lot. What's the total amount for the whole information industry when you go past the data centers?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that statistic. Oh, well, 7% of global energy consumption is due to the information technology sector.
That's pretty significant.
So we're getting to the point where it really is as big as automobiles in some ways. Certainly in more developed countries, we're making more efficient cars. So cars are becoming less impactful.
Right.
Granted, they still need to stop burning carbon. But now we've got another key human infrastructure that depends almost entirely on power and can eat up a lot of resources doing so. Yeah.
It's ironic, actually, mentioning that. There was an article yesterday about Seattle, their city light bills are planned to go up over the next 5 years, in part because the citizens have been so good about being efficient and not using, and so now the rates have to go up a little bit so that they can still support their infrastructure.
Right.
Because so many of the fixed costs, the buildings, where the electricity is made, that's fixed. And so if your use drops, then something has to go up in order just to maintain things.
And here in the state of Washington, you have people on the east side of the state, which is more flat, windier, feeling oppressed by people in the cities because
Right.
they have to have solar. And the people who live out there don't want solar. They do a not in my backyard kind of a thing. But
Just because it's unattractive, or
it's not rural. And this is not the people who live there.
Right.
It's the people moving there from the cities
Sure.
saying, we thought this was all going to be full of tractors and horses.
right.
What are all these mirrors doing here? And so in a lot of ways, it ends up being the city causing its own problems and then complaining about it rather than – and I think to some extent Eastern Washington has a fair beef there because a lot of those people would love to embrace alternative fuels
Sure.
and alternative power.
Sure.
So
That's interesting. Well, Sarah, can I ask you, did you get a sense of what were some of the significant factors that would make one company, let's say Google, highly efficient, whereas another company like Hulu is not? Is it just that Hulu needs to catch up, or has Google got some ideas that other people just don't have?
Well, I think one of the issues regarding energy efficiency is the heat that's put off by data centers. So utilizing more efficient technologies that don't put off so much heat, because that heat is wasted. It's not something that they need to utilize. So implementing more efficient technologies, and then obviously the use of solar and wind and other renewable sources.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. That's not something that I'd ever really thought about, was looking at, sort of the scores. So that's good information for me.
It's interesting. Google has done quite a bit on their own campus as well, starting back in about 2007, installing a lot of solar on their own campus. And they have a 970 kilowatt cogeneration system that uses local landfill gas to produce heat and electricity for its campus. So they've really been innovative with energy use for over a decade.
they understand they need to be essentially self-contained. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably smart for any number of reasons.
Yeah, including security.
Right. And if there's a variation in the grid, if they are more self-sustaining, so much the better.
Yeah. Our grid has to grow up too, but absolutely. Boy, we're kind of a little down today. I'm sorry.
It's been a tough week. It's only Wednesday, but it's been a tough week.
It's only Wednesday.
Yeah.
And the world's only half dead.
What other stories do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about recycling an entire building?
Yeah, let's do that one. I know you thought that was an interesting one.
I did think this was an interesting story. It kind of feeds into a lot of the, reuse and recycle. I'm a huge fan of going to estate sales and going to the Habitat for Humanity store whenever we need something. So it's interesting to think of it from the other perspective, which is you have a building. Let's say you need to take it all down or take it down to the base because you're going to do a significant remodel. You can do that in a much more environmentally friendly way. And what I've been looking at is a story by Liz Green, July 3rd, on how do you recycle an entire building. So look for it on the EARTH911 website. Mm-hmm. But essentially, the question is just like that old joke of how would you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Well, that's how you need to look at these buildings too. One bite at a time. They're complex structures, but they have, dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of components. And it's the components that you need to focus on. And
if you bulldoze it as compared to take it apart, you lose all of that.
You lose all of it. Now, I'll tell you, it's probably cheaper to bulldoze it and toss it all in a skip, but you wouldn't want to do that if you have a choice, because there are all kinds of valuable materials there. And if we find a way to make it feasible to monetize those materials coming out of the building, it actually probably offsets and more the cost of doing a bulldozing. I think it does. Now, we see this right now in vintage buildings. If you have an older building in town, we've got a few in Tacoma that they're either in such bad shape that they need to be taken down, or they sell and someone wants to do something radically different. And so we do have operations that will come in and take up your floorboards. Fur flooring is highly valuable. Take out your windows, your sconces, your roof tiles, everything. Right. There's also commercial enterprises in this town and others like an architectural recycling that will offer those found materials at a significant discount. So if you have a vintage house, you're probably already in the habit of going and checking out those types of resources when you want to, get a new doorknob or plates for your heating vents and things like that.
Well, I also think this points to where we're going with building construction. That we're going to be building in order to take things apart again in the future and even reuse things like whole walls. You may pull different wiring through it, although I think we're getting to the point where pulling wiring through the wall might become obsolete too.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but maybe so.
But there's a lot of things that are going to change that will make it even easier to reuse the components of a house. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other interesting aspect of this story for me is that as you think about plumbing fixtures, how cabinets are built, where stairs are put in and how stairs are put in, where the frames of doors and windows, all of that stuff is going to be reused. And I think and we're evolving an aesthetic, like we were talking about with antique homes, that people will treasure things that come from an older time and an older place. So, Sarah, as you look at your home in the community you live in, is that something that people are starting to value? Is the idea of the antiquity of the materials?
Unfortunately, it was all new materials that were used to construct the homes. But I think that would have been a great element to add. Like I've heard about people taking apart barns and using these beautiful, 100 or 200-year-old vintage woods again for tables and things like that. But no, that wasn't something that was involved in the home that I live in.
In the community you're living in, everything is done to such a high standard of environmentalism that, probably using the new products was the way to go.
Yeah, especially for insulation and windows and doors and things like that. Like we have triple pane windows and doors with air sealing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I certainly think about. Our house is not a particularly lovely vintage house. It's a, 1968 split level, as is everything else on the street.
I grew up in one of those.
I know. Well, I think you grew up in the neighborhood I live in. But, if I was going to do something like change the front, there's a lot of things that still have good life in them. The vinyl windows are still good. The siding is in beautiful shape. So it's just a matter of sort of piecing through and thinking about what you can reuse. And I guess the other piece is keep in mind things that really are hazardous and that you should not reuse. Mm-hmm. So, for example, fluorescent fixtures, refrigerators or air conditioners that contain freon, so those would be older ones, batteries, vinyl flooring, roof and wall claddings. We have beautiful textured ceilings with sparkles in it, which we probably will just leave alone because we don't know if it has asbestos or not. But if you're taking that down, you need to consult with someone about doing it properly. And any materials that contain lead.
Which includes a surprising amount of plumbing.
Oh, really? From all the pipes and things like that? Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, and doing a redo of your piping, you probably do need if you have lead pipes. But
and still thinking straight.
Yeah. Luckily, the EARTH911 site has recycling information, so you can find places that take your hazardous waste. And I would say if I was doing this, I would also maybe at the beginning consult with Habitat for Humanity and say to them, hey, what kinds of things will you take at your Habitat store? Yeah. Because they reuse a huge amount of stuff, but I don't know if there are limits. Oh, they'll pick it up for you too. Oh, even better.
So by having that discussion in advance, you can make sure they're going to take it, and you can plan how you separate stuff as well.
Yeah. The other thing the story had, just two little items, was a note that at Arizona State University, they're looking at how to replicate the calcification of abalone shells in order to figure out how to create strong, eco-friendly building materials.
Well, that's the carbon capture program too, which is something that's been worked out by a company called Blue Planet, as well as a couple of other firms, one in Minnesota. And what they're all trying to do is figure out how to take the calcium that is freed up and turn it into limestone.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So some good things, if you're doing some work around the house, keep all that in mind.
Well, so now, Sarah, did Hawaii just ban our favorite sunscreens? Not that I've actually used sunscreen. I try not to, but what should we be doing if we're going to Hawaii and we've got some copper tone?
Yeah, so recently the governor signed a bill that will ban sunscreens containing oxybenzone and octinoxate. And so unfortunately, that is in over 3,500 sunscreen products, including Hawaiian Tropic, Coppertone, and Banana Boat.
Oh, those are big brands.
But the law actually doesn't take effect until 2021.
At which time Hawaiian Tropic will just have to change its name to Tropic?
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a misleading name if it can't be sold there.
So what does oxybenzone octinoxate do that it deserves to be banned?
Well, basically, these are added to sunscreens as chemical filters, and both of them have a persistence, and they bioaccumulate in our bodies, and they're also endocrine disrupting chemicals. But basically, the concern in this case, I believe, is because of the concentrations that are being found in Hanuma Bay. They're finding high concentrations of oxybenzone.
And that's killed the coral.
Yeah. So basically the concern is the effects on the coral and even bleaching and decline of coral. And then also the effects on marine organisms.
That makes sense. I mean, if you think about like every single person going into the water in Hawaii is probably slathered with sunscreen.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And sort of as an aside, it doesn't have great health impacts on humans as well. And so if you're slathering yourself in these chemicals, they're not just getting into the water, but they're also some of them are being absorbed into our bodies.
And of course, that's not the focus of the Hawaii law, because one of the things Hawaii has to do is maintain a good relationship with all of those sunscreen companies. The tension is palpable in the story about their desire not to blame this on the product per se, but on these two elements of the product, without saying, sunscreen as a concept might be not well thought out. If in fact it's hurting people, and there's no reference in the bill to human impacts; it's only to coral.
Only coral, yeah.
So it's we need to be a little more honest with ourselves. But good job on Hawaii for doing the right thing with regard to the coral and as a byproduct for humans.
Well, you can find some sunscreens that are safer for you and safer for the environment, but you have to look a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not as easily accessible.
Yes, sunscreens that contain mineral filters use minerals to actually block the sun's rays as opposed to using chemicals. So titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are two of those mineral filters. So that's a great viable alternative, although they do tend to leave a bit of a, kind of a white chalky look on the skin.
But maybe that'll become the sought after look, You got to get some influencers to start wearing that. Get the Kardashians to start wearing it.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Kardashians wearing sunscreen. Actually, that white look is very popular in, I watch a lot of cricket.
Okay.
And a lot of cricket players are slathered in this stuff all over the world. It's a cool look.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was growing up, I grew up in Laguna Beach, California, and that was what the lifeguards all wore, was a heavy coat of zinc oxide, the white sunscreen across at least their nose and cheeks.
Yeah.
So it wasn't considered uncool back then, but I don't know.
I know it was uncool for my dad, who was a lifeguard in the late 40s and early 50s, because he still has skin issues from that. And
really?
He wouldn't go out. He had to go out and get a burn first thing every year. I remember him telling me that when I was a kid. You start with a burn.
Yeah.
And I didn't. So let's talk about outdoor fun for kids. I thought you hit on a nice story here.
Yeah, I like this little story, Camping Cars. Well, I should start by saying, I remember we used to go on these long family camping trips with a trailer. So 4 kids, a dog, a trailer, and a station wagon. And let me tell you, there was times when it was hell. And my poor mother was always coming up with some kind of crafts. And I wish she'd had some of these, because these are some really good ones. So this is from a story by Kimberly Button that was originally published in May of 2015, recently again on our website, June 29th. And 8 camping crafts your kids will love, and I'll just pick a couple of them that I thought were particularly fine. The first is a pine cone bird feeder. So this is, go out with your kids, take a walk, and have them find pine cones. They don't have to be big or little pine cones. You slather them with peanut butter, and then you can roll them in, bird seed or probably some nuts too, and tuck them into a tree. And the chipmunks, birds, squirrels will just love it.
Yep.
So make sure it's a natural peanut butter. I would say don't get Skippy if you can. Get a unsweetened, no sugar peanut butter.
And then stand back and let the kids watch, because that's the other thing I think that's the amazing thing to me when I was on those long camping trips, was that we would stop and spend time looking at nature. And in this case, you're doing something that's going to attract animals, birds. You should see these things as a kid. You shouldn't just see them on TV.
No, I think this would be great. And I think it would be great, great for the animals, great for the kids.
Well, I actually did the binoculars one when I was a kid.
Oh, did you, with the toilet paper tubes?
Yeah, and so I recognize that.
Did you like it?
As a kid, yeah, I thought it was cool because I had some binoculars.
Yeah, so this is there's a plan for 2 different toilet paper tube crafts. One is make play binoculars, and so you basically tape the tubes together, and the kids can go out looking through them. And I think that's great, especially if you have a child who's really imaginative, and who would like the idea of playing an adventurer.
Yeah,
I think that would be excellent. There's also discussion of creating a toilet paper mock campfire, which frankly wouldn't have appealed to me, but if you've got extra toilet paper tubes, what the heck?
And it's not raining.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of these are definitely keep handy in case the weather turns against you.
Yeah.
This one I really love too is a nature bracelet, because it's so simple. So this, you take masking tape and you wrap it with the sticky side out. So wrap it around your kid's wrist, sticky side out. And as they take a walk, you can have them pick up little stones, feathers, bits of leaf, and stick it to the bracelet. And at the end of the day, they've got a bracelet and a memory chart of all the things they've seen that day. Now, I don't think that was going to last very long. So if you want to keep it, I think you could then later, transfer it onto a piece of paper or something and keep it. Or spray it.
Spray it and frame it.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
I think that's I like that, because I like the idea of walking along and collecting things too, because again, Mitch, it sort of says focus on what is in your environment.
And I think kids need to see and hear that all day long.
Yeah. And I'll touch on 2 others that I liked. One was a tree branch tapestry, which is take a ball of yarn with you and find a branch, and you can wind the yarn around the tree branch and create something new. And there's apparently a DIY tutorial on how to do this from Parents Magazine, but I don't have a site to that. And the other is beaded sticks. So this is, you collect fallen twigs, and you can decorate those with beads and yarn, feathers, leaves. You could have them become a fairy wand, a wizard wand, or any kind of work of art. And, as your kid gets older, I also think you could have walking sticks that you would, put designs on and things too. So I like all of these ideas, and I do think that it would be a lot of fun to go out with the kids and do some of this.
Well, I think the play with your kids is always the most important thing to be doing. And we tend to say, go play over there on the computer. And I've seen people go on vacations, there's just like parents on one side of the pool, the kids on the other, and they're looking at screens. Let's get them out there and have some fun. And in this case, teach them upcycling in the process, right? They're taking stuff and turning it into something new and fun.
Well, I also think, when I was a kid, since I did have 3 younger brothers, I needed kind of timeouts occasionally where I was left alone. So if you have something like that going on, some craft ideas is a good way that everyone sort of separates and has their own activity, so they're not constantly on each other.
Sounds like maybe there's some memories there you want to
honestly
unpack it sometime.
I haven't gone camping since, so yeah, maybe so.
When my kids were a little bit younger, we really enjoyed making boats and rafts out of sticks and then figuring out what would actually float. And just today I was actually making leaf impressions with my kids where we painted leaves.
Oh, nice.
And I love that.
Put a cloth and weighted them on top to make basically like a stamp out of a leaf.
That'd be
that
nice.
was also really fun.
Yeah.
But the things that float, I remember having both kind of contests in rivulets to see which one would go further before it got stuck, or also if we were on a real river or stream, how long could you track the thing you put in?
Oh, yeah.
And so you would run down the shore and try to keep an eye out. And then all that ends up being just great fun and great memories, too.
Absolutely.
My son last summer found some large logs and actually made a raft that he was trying to sit on, and then he got a paddle and was trying to paddle himself around this pond.
Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, that's pretty ambitious, actually. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, right.
So the
I
last...
did put a life jacket on him just to make it safe.
Probably.
Well, yeah, and to feel responsible about
Yeah.
it. And of course, I don't think my parents ever really worried about us when we were... I don't remember wearing a lot of life jackets. So the last story I wanted to touch real quickly on is we recently had an interview with Stuffstr's CEO, John Atchison. And Stuffstr is a tool that was launched here in the Seattle area that allows you to recirculate products after you buy them. And they've done things with Amazon and REI to allow people shopping there to do that. But John's been off in the UK, and I wanted to urge people to go back and listen to the interview again, because they just announced a big deal with one of two major retailers in the UK, John Lewis. So John Lewis is kind of it's a little bit of everything. It's a European department store rather than an American department store, so there's food and things in it as well sometimes. And they wanted to start to recirculate clothing in particular. They said, there's about 4,000 pounds of clothing in every home in Britain that just goes unused most of the time. So why don't we start taking it back?
4,000 pounds, wow.
Well, I'm sorry, 4,000 pounds in the dollar sense.
In money, I was thinking, where do you keep it all?
Those must be huge homes. So 4,000 pounds worth of clothes. So roughly $5,500 worth of clothes for those of you who are trying to do the math. What John Lewis is doing is they went back and looked at their records for 5 years for every customer. So when you start using this app, you can just immediately, at the touch of a button, review anything that you have that you've purchased from John Lewis over the last 5 years and have it picked up once it reaches $50 or 50 pounds in value.
Wow.
So they'll just show up an hour later and pick all this stuff up, from socks to clothing, and in the past, and they'll continue to do this as well. They do sofas, mattresses, and last year they collected 27,000 electrical products.
Wow.
So this is a real move on the part of John Lewis and Stuffstr to ignite the circular economy. And it's great to see this, because new stuff will start to be cataloged in this way and recirculated easily. The question is, of course, what do you do with all this stuff that's not cataloged? And that'll be a topic for many, many future shows.
Right.
So take a listen. It's EARTH911 interview. Stuffstr, that's spelled Stuffstr, one of those web spellings, turns on the circular economy.
That sounds really good. So let's look at our questions. We've got 2 questions this week. Want to start with the first one?
I'm actually navigating to the first one.
Okay, I'll say what it. So THC, if that's his real name, on the Earthling forum asks, I've been recycling everything from candy wrappers, juice container tops, under the tops, I don't know what that means, frozen vegetable bags, turning them inside out and scrubbing them, etc. I called the local garbage recycling center here and asked about this and that. The typical response was, throw it in the garbage. Is recycling a myth?
I think a lot of people are starting to feel that recycling is a myth because of the impact of the China ban. And there's a lot of programs that are now starting to scale back what they'll do. And there was an excellent piece in the Los Angeles Times earlier this week about the fact that ardent recyclers were feeling betrayed by the fact that most of the stuff that they're recycling now is ending up in landfills.
Yes.
And this is exactly what we want to avoid, the idea that, this is not worth it. Mm-hmm. But we've run ourselves into a corner because we were we're used to shipping everything overseas.
Right.
And now we're at a point where we really do need to, like we were talking about with houses earlier, start thinking about mining the past to create and build the future. It means that the materials are going to be less expensive, especially in an era when we've got tariffs of 25 and 30% on things like aluminum. It for the manufacturers gives them what is called resources security or materials security, so that if they're starting to capture the stuff they used on their last round of products, they can use that in the next. Apple's an example of that. They've actually partnered with Alcoa to create a new form of aluminum that uses 1/3 the energy to create. And doing that with the recycled aluminum then even dramatically lowers it even more. So the whole world is looking at the 1950s structure on which we built recycling and thinking we've got to do better.
Right. A lot of the problem here, I think, we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago, is that in order to get us all comfortable recycling, we did this combined recycling, throw it all in a bin and, your local garbage company will take it and sort it out.
And that's
later.
the problem.
Right. And so we have the sense that probably a lot of this stuff was never recyclable, but we didn't know it. And they didn't really want to tell us because they want us to try, keep trying.
And yet it is recyclable. The problem is it's all mixed up.
Right. Exactly. So, Trey Granger mentioned 2 weeks ago, maybe get in the habit of going to your recycling center once every week or once every 2 weeks, because you have a lot more, since you're going to sort at the recycling center, you have a lot more control and things, and you can recycle more things that way.
And making direct connections, and you can find them on the EARTH911 search engine with recyclers who specialize in specific kinds of materials like scrap metal, ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal, plastics recyclers, paper recyclers, and they will buy this stuff from people. The question is, how do you get it to them?
Yeah, so I actually think that the passionate recyclers who may be feeling a little bit betrayed are the most likely to be able to make the transition to, now you need to become a highly functioning recycler. It's time to up your game.
Well put.
Right? And I think that they will. I think the harder thing is going to be for the person who really wants the convenience of just pitching it into a combined bin. How do you keep them on the track?
I think what we ultimately need is not to pitch into one combined bin, but we'll have to have and I have this argument with my wife frequently, and it is an argument because she does not want 5 bins in the kitchen, and so we have one bin in the kitchen. That means that needs to be sorted into 5 bins, which strangely then ends up in one bin again. As soon as it gets to the recyclers.
Yeah.
So we're looking at how to do this more efficiently too.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you guys how do you handle it on the community, the farm?
Yeah, there's a couple different approaches here. One, we do have a single stream recycling dumpster, and then there are other folks that drive their recycling to the transfer station, and their things are sorted. So the idea is that there's a higher recycling rate with those items. And then because we live in Maine, there's also a bottle and can deposit.
Right.
So
That's nice.
You actually get money back. That makes it a lot more interesting for a lot of people. The thing about the transfer stations, though, is that they end up going into what's called a materials recovery facility, or a MRF, which is the industry term for it. And MRFs essentially shake and magnetize and demagnetize and use centrifugal force to separate all the stuff that we have combined in those things in the single bin. And I think one of the things we need to do is think about how to disintermediate the MRFs to get right to the people who are interested in the material. The MRF is almost, and when you look at the revenue and the spending by companies like Waste Management or Republic, Waste Management makes 9% of its revenue from recycling. That includes the materials and the recycling fees. Republic is like 4%. Where's all the stuff going?
Right.
It goes into the MRFs and is not tracked in any meaningful way. And then a lot of it ends up in landfills because it isn't being tracked. There's no responsibility without the ability to count. And that's another way we need to change things is some way of counting the fact that a recyclable got from place A to place Z in the whole stream rather than just, I got it to B. and I don't worry about it anymore. I would like to know this is actually being responsibly recycled.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So what's our last question?
Okay. Donna in South Dartmouth, Massachusetts says, I would like to know if coloring book pages that have already been colored with crayons can be recycled.
Well, unfortunately, they're a lot of fun. The kids love them, but once they're covered with crayon, that paper is contaminated, like we were talking about, with a non-soluble material, a waxy crayon, which also, interestingly, uses an immense amount of petroleum to make. So on a couple of different dimensions, crayons are both really wonderful art objects and kind of pollutants. So they once you've drawn on the paper, it's done. What you need to do is send it to a landfill, a landfill that can compost it responsibly.
So let me ask you, I was curious reading this question. Do you think it's better if you rip your crayon-colored paper into little bits? Is that helpful at all? Or is
Maybe
that not
for
helpful?
the soul, but...
just to very emotionally feel like you're doing something.
Dang, I wish this was recyclable.
What about if
Tear.
What if you use markers? Would markers be different than crayons?
Some markers are water-based. They would be
Yeah.
recyclable.
Okay.
Oil-based markers or chemical-based markers, the ones
Not
that
so
kind
much.
of, you don't want to breathe for too
Right,
long,
right.
you can't recycle those either.
Okay, interesting.
But it comes down to the paper fibers and being able to separate them from those chemicals.
So that's maybe a lesson, too, for parents when you're looking at art supplies. If this is something that's a concern, look for water-based soluble art
watercolors.
supplies. Watercolors and watercolor pens and things like that.
Because
But
all that can be
crayons-
bleached back out.
Yeah, crayons are sort of a favorite, so
Yep.
good to know.
Well, hey,
I think
can't recycle that, but there are so many things you can.
so many things you can. All right, well, before we sign off, Sarah, anything else from you today?
That's it from here.
Okay.
Well, have a great summer afternoon in Maine.
Yeah,
You too.
have fun. All right, well, that's it for this week. Send any feedback you have to our email address, which is feedback@earth911.com. Stay tuned on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and you can always find us at the website earth911.com. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, folks. Take care.